Hey everyone, it's me, Rai Rai, and if you are following my playlist of my first journey completing a full sketchbook, this is day 2 or the second page. I decided to use a Winsor Newton fine liner this time because the last pen I used was a little bit heavy. It's basically kind of like a micron. I just like to feel a little better. Sometimes I like to hold the pen a little closer to the tip, and there's that little ridge right there. Also, on the micron, there's that little ridge. The fine liner doesn't have that. It also is really narrow at the end, so you'll see when I'm drawing, I could see my drawing a little better, but that's why I'm using this tool this time around. Also, I had a little smudge because the ink wasn't taking, or was taking too long to dry a little bit when I was drawing with my fountain pen because it dropped a lot of ink, which is another reason why I'm going to use the fine liner. But yeah, so if you're just joining the series, you didn't see the first one, what I'm doing is I'm trying to do my first completed sketchbook. I've done a ton of sketchbooks over the years, probably like over a dozen or so, but I've never completed one. I usually have a couple pages that I didn't like that I ripped out, or I start a new one, or there's a bunch of blank pages in the end. So this time I am trying to fill up a whole sketchbook. Rather than kind of just describing my process, I thought I would share kind of just some life stories and do that with the downtime because I like the idea of being very transparent with these sketchbooks and showing the process from beginning to end with no, I guess there's no real cuts, and also it's not sped up, so it's just real time footage of me drawing in my sketchbook. Last time I drew orchids, this time I'm going to be drawing some roses. For this first story, I was trying to think of something very lighthearted and fun that I could tell, but I keep getting, I just keep getting bombarded with memories from my past. I know I've grown a lot, and there's a lot of things we've done in our lives. Many of us who have hurt people and have we've sought forgiveness, and luckily I've had people who showed me a lot of mercy and forgave me for better or worse, and I am thankful because I'm a grown person now and not the person I was last year, 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I was further than that. So I am thankful for everyone who's showed me mercy and forgave me and has been kind to me and have allowed me to grow and continue to be a better person and try to pay it forward in a way too, and forgive people who have hurt me, and really just trying to fill the world with more love and kindness when we can, because I know I wasn't the kindest person many times in my life. I thought of me first, and I did not think of the outcome or the consequences. So the story I want to tell today goes all the way back into the 90s in fourth grade. When I was in the fourth grade, I struggled to kind of pay attention to school. I've mentioned this a million times. I have ADHD. I'm kind of scatterbrained. I'm dyslexic. I'm easily distracted, and I have a lot of flaws when it comes to being educated and learning new things. And I felt that my childhood, I was very kind. I know I've probably wronged people in third grade, but it was never intentional. It was probably because I'm just have a brain that makes me seem flaky because I get distracted so often. But in fourth grade was a time where I consciously did something that I remember to benefit myself in a way, at the cost of kind of possibly hurting somebody and emotionally maybe damaging or hurting somebody. And the story I'm going to tell is about how I lost my kindness in fourth grade, because I feel like that was a pivotal moment in my life where I learned that I could, how do I say this? I guess I could say I realized I could choose to protect myself at the cost of kindness. So I went to a small little private school in Anaheim, California, and it was a very fun family kind of group of kids. It was a very small class. Our class never got over like 20 kids, I don't think, because it was like small private school. But my fourth grade class was small. We're all friends, and there were kids that were more popular and then some kids that were less popular. But overall, it didn't feel like, at least in fourth grade, it felt like we were all family. We're all kind of siblings, and we all kind of looked out for each other. But there was this one girl, we'll call her Rose, and she had, like me, I believe, I don't know, she was neurodivergent, but like me, she definitely struggled with ADHD. She was very hyperactive. She was always kind of twitching when she talked and blinking, and she always ate with her mouth open. And I think a lot of us kids never seen somebody or experienced somebody like that yet. So it was very easy for kids to target her. And I wouldn't, because I was just like extremely afraid of being mean to somebody, because I was like, it wasn't just because I was kind. I think it was because I was afraid of getting in trouble for hurting somebody's feelings or for saying something mean. So I was kind of always trying to be nice to everyone. And I think I was genuinely a sweetheart, not to like to my own horn, but I think I was a freaking angel. Like when I was a kid, I just felt very, at least when I was in fourth grade, I felt like, when I look back, I'm like, wow, I was so passive. I was always crying because I was so sensitive. I always wanted to, if not fit in, I just wanted to make sure everyone was getting along. And I was always scared of everything. And I was that kid, like when the parent was 5 minutes late, would start crying, not because I really had separation anxiety, but because I just wanted everything to go smoothly, kind of, for everyone. And I don't know. But anyway, so this girl named Rose would, she was a kid that did gross kid things, and we've all done gross kid things. You know, I didn't pick my nose and eat it like she did. Like she would pick her nose and kind of eat it, but I would like pick my nose and put it on the wall and gross stuff like that when I was little. So, you know, she did kid things, and she just did she maybe did it like more often than usual, and it kind of all worked against her. And people, what I mean is her peers started kind of not liking it. And I always felt myself really liking Rose. She was always funny and friendly to me, and just had a good sense of humor, and was always kind of upbeat. When kids were kind of mean, she'd kind of just brush it off. And I thought that was so cool. I thought she was really cool. I remember she had an older brother too, which was also known for being a little weird, and he might have been bullied a bit too. But my sister, I have an older sister, she tutored him. Wait, did she tutor him or my friend Rose? I don't remember. I think she did tutor Rose too. But my sister knew the family as well. And my sister was like 4 years older than me. So she was a lot. And my sister was much more mature for her age than I was. I was always immature for my age. But anyways, my sister and I were invited to my friend Rose's pool party. And I was excited about the pool party. I had gone to a ton of pool parties. I lived in a complex when I was little, like a condominium complex, and everyone always had pool parties. But Rose had a pool at her house, and I thought that was so cool too. So I assume her parents were like middle class and had a nice home in Orange County, and we went to go swimming at her pool and go to this pool party. So my sister and I went, and from what I remember, people were invited, and my sister and I were the only two people that showed up. And that was the first feeling I thought, when I remember, from what I'm remembering, I'm going to feel really bad if it was just like, no, me and my sister were the only ones invited. But from what I remember, it was supposed to be a fun pool party with other people there. and I was the only one that showed up. And we were offered all this great food and snacks. And that's another thing I loved about Rose, is she just was like a foodie like me. Like, she had such good food. When I mean good food, I mean like good food for kids that we liked, like junk food and stuff. And like, she had the best Doritos and like sandwiches and stuff for after swimming, and I loved it. I was so excited to see her house, and Rose was so fun and nice in the pool. And I from what I remember, I feel like my sister had fun, but there was this feeling where I started to think, why didn't anyone else show up? And I I think it was starting to hit me where I felt bad for her for the first time. And I remember sitting there when I was eating my sandwich and Doritos, cheddar Doritos. You can imagine we're sitting beside the pool in the shade next to this beautiful pool that's all in the sun, sparkling and smells like chlorine. And we're drinking soda out of these big plastic cups that have ice in it. So there's all this, condensation on the outside, like it's all watery and wet. And I remember Rose was eating Doritos, and instead of like most people would kind of either lick their fingers or kind of wipe off their fingers before touching the wet cup, she didn't. She just like full on would grab the cup, and I want to say Cheeto dust, but the Dorito dust would start to get all over the outside of the cup and create this like orange mud that, looking like, I didn't realize that it was gross until her brother had said something and said, "God, Rose, like, that's so gross. Like, wipe your hands or something." And he said it just not in a too mean of a way, but just kind of like as a brother, kind of like looking out for her, but also, I guess, kind of being a little harsh. But she was just like, "Oh, okay," and just kind of like Rose just like went with it, like nothing, and it didn't even damage her. But I remember thinking when the brother brought that up, I'm like, it does look gross. And that's when I was like, huh. And I never had seen her like that, really. Like, even when she picked her nose and ate it, I didn't think of it, because I was like, I feel like I've seen other people, like popular people, do that too, or something just as gross. But or human, I should say. But something kind of started to click, and it didn't bring me down, but something started to click where I started seeing Rose in a way that other people were seeing her, and which is probably the reason why they didn't show up, because something was off or different about her. But again, at the same time, I know I was only in fourth grade, but I was always a deep thinker like this. I always worried about everything. I also remember, while I was worrying about her a little bit, how she was being gross and like I wanted to help her in a way. I was also remembering how cool she was to just brush off her brother so nonchalantly and just still freaking get her cup even muddier as the day progressed. And so I admired her still. But yeah, when I say she's gross, she wasn't gross. She was just a kid and just a person. And I felt really bad for thinking that way. I continued to be friends with her. In class, Rose would often she sat in front of me for a while at one point, and she would turn around and, be kind of always chewing gum or doing something. And I still remember her face, and she would turn around and ask me for something like, "Oh, can I borrow a pencil?" or "Can I borrow your art supplies?" Because I always had great art supplies. My parents would always hook me up with like a really nice Crayola set, with more colors than my peers might have had. And I remember during a project, she turned around and was like, "Hey, can I borrow some of your color pencils?" And I was like, "Sure." So I let her borrow them. And then when I did that, a couple students of my peers saw me do it, and they looked at me so differently. And being very naive and innocent, I didn't know what it was. And I was like, did I say something? Do I smell? I brushed my teeth. Like, what is it? And then when recess came around, they started singing Rose and Ryan sitting in a tree, Kising. And you remember all that, teasing So then they started teasing me that I was like in love with Rose. Now I'm a gay person. So I definitely didn't think of Rose like that. I was definitely so young, so I didn't even think like that, like about being with somebody. Of course, I had a bunch of girlfriends in third grade, I guess. And I was, that's another story. I had so many girlfriends at once. I was like playing all these girls, and I didn't even, and in sixth grade, I think the same thing happened again. But I was gay, and I just thought like I was supposed to have a girlfriend, and that was my beard. Anyways, another story for another day. But I did not like Rose that way. I liked her for how fun she was and outgoing and how confident she was, because I really want to be that confident. And it hurt me that my peers were teasing me for being nice to her. So the next day, Rose turned around and asked me for my colored pencils again, if she could borrow them, and kind of looked around the room, and I felt people watching, and I told Rose, no, don't you have your own colored pencils? And she was like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll just use the colors I have. And then she just went on about her project. And I felt terrible, even though Rose just went on through and did her own thing, probably care less about what I thought of her, me declining her, because she probably got declined a bunch of times before by kids. I felt so bad. And at the same time, I was rewarded in a way, because I wasn't teased that recess for sharing art materials with her. And when I look back at it as an adult, I'm like, this wasn't some epic betrayal, but it was a shift in my thinking. I realized I could choose to protect myself at the cost of kindness. And that's what I did. It wasn't like a monster moment, like it was just a human one, which a lot of times is scarier almost. I never apologized to Rose, but I continued to be her friend as much as my fear would allow. I think it became a trigger for me to let her borrow things of mine, which I felt was unkind, because I loved letting her borrow my materials. She was very much into art and appreciated things that I had, and yeah, she was a good friend. Even though we weren't close friends, we still connected in a lot of ways. But it wasn't like other friends I had where we had sleepovers and we seen each other through family tragedies or things like that, or hardships. But she was a good person, and I never got to apologize. I could have, but I never did. And I wonder if she even remembers that moment, because she was always so proud and happy and go lucky when I saw her. And I hope she continued to be that way. And I feel like I have a little bit of Rose in me now. I learned a big lesson from it. But yeah, it was fun kind of sharing that story with you, kind of memory lane. And what I'm curious about is if any of you have had a Rose in your life, or if you were a Rose. And if you'd share your story with me, I don't know, maybe I'd like to share your story in a YouTube video where I'm sketching. If you feel like it has a good hook and lesson or something, it'd be fun to hear what you guys have to say and things you experienced. If you were Rose, like what things did you do that people thought were gross? That probably everyone did. I mean, like when I'm talking about Rose, like she was the kid, and she's not the only kid that had this happen, but you know, the kid that like eats Oreos, but like more of it's on their lips and mouth and chin than is in their mouth, probably. That's like, I'm laughing because I'm picturing another friend I had that had Oreos every day, and he always had more Oreos on his face than in his mouth. But just kind of one of those kids, you know. I always try to think about things that, when I think about Rose, you know, because I'm not being judgmental now, because kids are kids, but I'm trying to think about what weird things I had done when I was little. I mentioned picking my nose when I was little and putting it on a wall, which I think is so gross now. But as a kid, I was like, oh, what am I going to do with this? Why don't you just get a tissue, Ryan? Oh my gosh. Oh, I was also the snotty kid that had like snot coming out and rubbed it on his clothes too, which was gross. But yeah, there's a lot of things I wish I could go back and be different, but that's life. Could look back and laugh at it, I guess. But I think when you're kind of a kid, everything just feels so dramatic. Like getting up to go get a tissue is just so much work. And now it's like I have occupations where, I'm cleaning, literally cleaning shit off the floor sometimes. So that was my little story for today. I still have a bit to do on this drawing, so I'll talk a little bit about the process I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of hatching. I really like using fine liners. If you never use a Winsor Newton fine liner, it's basically like a micron. But like I said, you can see the tip's a little more narrow. I'm going to gush about this pen because, I do work for Winsor Newton sometimes. And this is not sponsored, this post, but you'll see you could do like kind of a lot of fine line work with it. So if you're sketchbooking, I feel like if you've never done ink, this is on watercolor paper too. If you've never done ink, I would recommend, I liked this process more than the first drawing I did with the orchids when I did a fountain pen. I really like how casual and easy it is to control pens like this, the fine liners or microns. So if you have some fine liners and microns around, I'd love to see kind of what work you do. You could always share your work with me or message me on Instagram. My Instagram is @RaiRaiPaints. I have Ryan Martin Art Instagram, which has like 10,000 followers or something, but RaiRaiPaints is the one I'm trying to grow more. I feel like my Instagram, my original one, Ryan Martin Art, is just like, it's like dead. I started Instagram when it not when it first started, but just like a year or so after or something. And it was so easy to get a bunch of followers. You just hashtag a little bit. And then now it's so hard. And I feel like a lot of those followers are just like probably even bots or something. So it kind of hurts my algorithm. Has that ever happened to you guys? Where your Instagram is just like, you get no views at all? I feel like I've been like blacklisted in some way or something. But my Rai Paints Instagram's kind of getting more engagement than my old one, so kind of pushing that one a little more. Oh, but since I do work with Winsor and Newton, I do like, if anyone's interested in this, you'll hear me talking about this a lot. It's because it's work, it's my life. But I work a little bit here and there, like part-time. Some months it's like 20 hours, some weeks it's like no hours. But I do materials demos in colleges and stuff and retail stores and kind of show off kind of the different materials Winsor & Newton has. So because I do that kind of work and that I do have some more following like on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, they do give me like an affiliate code. With that code, you get like 10% off. So I'll put the code here and you can get, I'll also put in the description the affiliate link. So for Winsor Newton site, some of the materials will have a discount. I looked into it, and this one, the fine liners do actually have a discount. So you could use it once, I believe, once per customer, and it's 10% off the fine liners. So it's the second spread in the sketchbook, and like I mentioned before, I'm trying to fill up a whole sketchbook. I'm thinking botanicals for this whole sketchbook now, and I think the next one might be like succulents. So if you're interested in seeing me draw some succulents, that might be in this next one. I'm contemplating whether I want to keep using the same fine liner for the whole sketchbook, or if I do want to keep bouncing back between fountain pen and fine liner. It is easier for me to draw with the fine liner, so I'm kind of leaning that way. But there's also sepia fine liners, which I might use as well. Just trying to think of what subject. The succulents I was going to draw, I think I want to draw in black. But I could think of a good subject that I would want in sepia instead. I think any of the botanicals could work, but yeah, I'll have to think about it. There's when I'm making notes about all these different stories I could talk about, and when I'm thinking back about them or back at them, I'm just like, gosh, all of them stem from my inability to concentrate as a young kid and having this hyperactive mind where that's always running a million miles a minute and switching subjects constantly. And just think about all these stories I have when I was a child and how at first I think like, oh, how difficult it made parts of my childhood, but in the end, what I'm really thinking about is how interesting it made my childhood that I have all these little stories of times I flaked on people and I could not help it. Like my brain just could not hold it together. One quick story I could say, little bonus story, is I remember my friend had overheard or found out in some way, it was elementary school again, that we have so many trick-or-treaters. Actually, I should do a whole episode on trick-or-treating. I have so many stories. But trick-or-treating where I lived with the complex, like doors were so close to each other, you could get tons, a shitload of candy for Halloween. And one of my good friends was supposed to come over. She was supposed to come over, not Rose, a different person. She was supposed to come over and meet me for trick-or-treating. But while I was giving out candy, my friend came by trick-or-treating and said, hey, let's go trick-or-treating together. Like, do you have your costume on? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. So I went with him trick-or-treating and totally forgot about her, the friend that was coming over with their parents, whatever, to like hang out with me and go trick-or-treating. I literally made plans with her to go trick-or-treating with her, and I forgot because my friend showed up, my neighbor, whatever, and said, let's go trick-or-treating together. So I just completely flaked on her. I was like, oh my gosh, how can I do that? I found out when she came around, when I came back later that night and I was still handing out candy and she came around, I was like, hey, where were you? Kind of thing. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's kind of a life, um, or like a moment inside my head as a child. Those are the kind of problems I had. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this drawing, and I hope to see you next time when you join me. Please comment, subscribe, like, share, and I'll be posting more soon.